video we are going to be doing a ramble today. We're going to just have a nice little chat, a whisper ramble, and we're going to be talking about stuff I dislike or hate about modern football right now. Now, this idea sort of just came to me. It was sort of a random point, but I thought, it'll be an interesting thing because there's a couple things where I don't particularly like about football right now, but I just wanted to sit here and talk about it. I think there's a lot of things, we all have our individual things which we don't like about modern football, so I'll be really fascinated to hear some of the things you guys dislike about football nowadays, because football has changed drastically. It always changes. I mean, football from 20 years ago, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago is vastly different to what it is now in 2025. So I just want to talk a little bit, have a little ramble about some of the stuff which I personally don't particularly like in the modern day football in 2025, because I mean, as I said, football's changed drastically, and I've been watching football for a decent amount of time now, so I just want to talk a little bit about that stuff. Now, I don't want to come across as like some old head guy who's super negative and toxic. I'm just making this video just as a sort of like, well, I guess just for relaxation purposes and just some thoughts I had. There's actually a lot of stuff I really do love and enjoy about modern football compared to back in the day too. I want to make that clear. And actually, if you guys enjoy this video, I can make a video separately about stuff I enjoy and love about modern football. So don't just perceive me as some guy who's just living in the past or anything. These are just some stuff I don't like right now, but I do love a lot of things as well about football nowadays. Of course I do, because I run a football ASMR channel, right? But anyways, so let's get into it. I haven't got a script or anything, but I've got a couple points I thought about. So the first thing which I dislike about modern football is how people judge players by stats. I think this is something which has developed over the last sort of 5 years mainly, and it's sort of like an evolution of Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, where we have these two people who just produced astronomical numbers and stats in terms of goal scoring and assists, that everyone was just like, wow. And they sort of, as a consequence, set a really high target. And I think it sort of made football fans, around my age, I'm growing up and watching Messi or Ronaldo just score a bucket load of goals. I'm hearing about this many records they've broken in terms of goals scored here, most goals in a game, most assists in a game, etc. So naturally, as I grow older, I sort of, start to judge people and players by stats, and I think, okay, how many goals does this guy score? How many assists does this person get? And I think that's something which all football fans in the modern day sort of now do, where a player is really just judged on stats and nothing else really. Now, don't get me wrong, you need stats, and I really actually, that's something which I do like about modern day football, is sort of underlying stats. And if there's a random player in playing for, I don't know, Osasuna, who obviously I don't watch week in, week out, I can just look his stats up on a stat website, and I can get a pretty detailed picture of how he plays and what sort of player he is, and a rough idea of just how good he is, which I really do like. However, I think a lot of people sort of take stats Osasuna, right? I've never seen this guy play. I look up his stats, I look at his, detailed stats and stuff, and I start to get an idea of what he's like. I'm like, okay, he's got X amount of goals, X amount of assists, etc. For me, what should happen from that point is, okay, I've got like a baseline understanding of how good this player from Osasuna is, but I cannot categorically say this guy is trash, categorically say this guy is very good for next Zidane, until I watch him play. Once I watch him play, then for me that is when I can actually judge the player, right? And I think a lot of people just sort of they see the stats, they see, oh, this person's got 20 goals in a season, he is unbelievable. Obviously a striker has got 11 goals in a season, and they're like, oh, this guy's trash, man. When actually, maybe if they watch him play, they'll see his movement's fantastic, he gets in great positions, but unfortunately maybe the team doesn't pick him out a lot. Maybe he doesn't get many chances, but he scores all the chances he gets. And I just think a lot of people dismiss players because they don't have good stats. And if stats was the only thing we're judging players on, then people like Luka Modric, Toni Kroos, Zinedine Zidane, Andre Pirlo, these guys are bums. They're bums. They've got they haven't got astronomical assist and goal numbers. Yet those people I just listed are some of the best passers and creative midfielders to ever play the game, right? So yeah, for me, that's just something I dislike a little bit, that people sort of take stats a bit too much and they're so obsessed with goals and assists. And in reality, actually looking and watching a player play for me is a little bit more important than just looking at their stats to judge how good a player is. But I do think stats are important, I just don't think it's the only thing you should be judging players on, right? And this sort of links into my next point, which is about the sort of reactionary fans and reactionary nature of modern football fans right now. I feel like after one bad game, a manager's got to go. A player is trash, a player is washed. If a player doesn't get X amount of goals in the next 3 games, they're trash. They're getting clowned on the internet, right? And look, I love trolling and calling players trash and stuff as well, right? But I sort of do it tongue in cheek, and I know a lot of people do. But I think there's genuinely people out there who are serious when, I don't know, for example, Cole Palmer hasn't gone through a good spell in the second half of this season. I think there's genuinely people out there who think Cole Palmer is not very good player. He's overrated. He was just stat padding against the smaller clubs, and now he's been exposed because he hasn't scored in like 10 games. When in reality, that's just not the case. Cole Palmer is a very good player, and he has proven he's a very good player. But it links to my other thing about stats and watching the game. If you actually watch the games he's played, a lot of those 10 games he's played pretty well. He just may be lacking in confidence in front of goal, and he's going through a rough spell of form, which is natural for a young player, right? But fans right now are very reactionary, where it's always an extreme. A player can never be decent or good. A player can never be a good player going through a rough little spell. A player can never be a decent player going through a nice patch of form. It's always someone's on amazing form. This guy, is he world class? Oh my days, this guy is amazing. Someone's going through a bad spell. He's washed, he's overrated, he can't do this, he can't do that. it's crazy. And same things with like managers. You're either in or out. Like with your manager, it feels like you're either 100% in and you'll back them till the end. They can't do anything wrong, or you're 100% out and they can't do anything right. I see this particularly online with like YouTubers as well. A lot of like YouTubers and fan channels, I see a lot of people like this where they're just 100% either against or 100% for their manager. There's no in between, right? It's just so extreme. It's okay to say, I want my manager to stay, but I think he had a bad game. I don't like his tactics this game. It's okay to say, I want my manager to stay. I think he's a good manager, but I think maybe his man management is rubbish. It's okay to say as well, I'm not 100% convinced of my manager right now if he's the right man for the job, but I don't want him to be sacked right now. Like, we don't have to be so extreme, we don't have to be so reactionary, in my opinion, which I think a lot of fans in football are. So, another thing which I dislike about modern football, the last two were sort of about fans and stuff, this one is more so about actual football, and it's modern day managers who are just obsessed with a philosophy and a system. It feels like modern day managers just for some weird reason do not have any tactical flexibility. Most of the young up and coming managers nowadays are just so obsessed with playing one particular way in every single game they play, and it is baffling to me, and I really, really do dislike this. It really is crazy to me, because if you look at the most successful managers of all time, if you look at the best managers in the world right now, if you look at the best managers in the last 10, 15 years, besides Pep Guardiola, pretty much none of them are this philosophy-centered, one way of playing types of managers, right? You think of Sir Alex Ferguson, you think of Jose Mourinho, you think of Carlo Ancelotti, you think of Jupp Heynckes, you think of more modern ones, Inzaghi right now, you think of Diego Simeone, you think of even Luis Enrique. All of these guys are not like 100% play the exact same way every game, no matter who they play with, and they're all some of the most successful managers of all time, and or some of the best managers right now. The only Pep Guardiola is an exception to the rule, where he's a manager who plays a strict philosophy and plays an exact way pretty much all the time, but he gets results. He's not the rule. Whereas most managers, I feel like, try to emulate and copy Pep, which is fine, right? It's fine. And I think having your philosophy is very important. I think you, especially in the modern day, you need to have a way of playing, you need to have a identity for your team. But just consistently playing it every single game and not having any in-game management, any tactical flexibility, is just mind-boggling and doesn't produce results. It just doesn't. You know, I'm thinking of managers like Ange Postecoglou, right? I'm thinking of managers like Ruben Amorim, managers like even like Russell Martin for Southampton, Vincent Kompany. All of these young managers they're just so obsessed with their system and their philosophy and their way of playing, and they just never really change it. They never change it. it just doesn't work. It doesn't work, right? To be an elite level manager, you need to have in-game management. You need to be able to adjust your philosophy, adjust your tactics in certain moments and in certain games to succeed, right? You cannot play the exact same way every single game and be successful. Like, you just can't unless you're Pep Guardiola. But even Pep, sometimes halfway through the season he'll change stuff. Like, remember that season where Man City weren't doing too well and then he suddenly inverts John Stones into midfield, right? Even he will switch things up from time to time. But I feel like modern day managers, those managers who are sort of like disciples of Pep and try to copy him, a lot of them just don't change their styles. They try to play the exact same way in every single match, when in reality you can play your philosophy, your way of playing in 80% of games, but for 20% of the games you should try and change it, and you should try and switch things up. You should, in a game, in-game management is very important. You need to be able to, for example, for Spurs with Ange Postecoglou, when you see your high line is maybe getting exposed in a certain game, you should probably change it, right? You should probably say, actually, you know what, let's just sip a little bit deeper for this particular game, because maybe it's not working this game, right? Rather than saying, that's how we play, mate, let's just play high line, whatever happens, even if we're getting exposed by the opposition. I feel like managers nowadays are more just head coaches. They just coach ways of playing and they just don't manage the situations in game. And that's something I really do dislike about modern day managers. Alright, and finally, the final thing which I hate about modern football is the constant player comparisons. I mean, this is something which really does irritate me, and I think it's something which has stemmed from the sort of Messi and Ronaldo stuff, where Messi and Ronaldo were just constantly compared to, right? And it started as heated rivalry and debate between football fans, and you're either one side of it or the other side. Is again linking to the reactionary thing, an extreme thing I was talking about, where you can't enjoy both. You have to be either a Messi or Ronaldo fan. But yeah, before that, to be honest, there weren't really many of these sort of player comparisons where who's better. But after that point, it feels like we're at a point now in 2025 where every single player has to be compared to somebody else. You can't just say a player is good. Oh, you have to compare them to someone. Like, for example, Lamine Yamal does amazing stuff at his age. You can't just enjoy it. You have to say, oh, is he better than Messi at his age? Is he the best at his age we've ever seen? Is he better than, I don't know, some other youngster in the world? It's like, chill out. Same thing with, like, for example, this season, Mo Salah starts the season off unreal form. Suddenly people talking about, is this the greatest ever Premier League season of all time? Is he going to be better than Henry? Is he top 5? Is he top 3 Premier League players of all time? And it's like, what? Can we just like enjoy the season? Why do we have to say, oh, he's top 3, he's top 5 now? Like, he's better than Henry, he's better than De Bruyne. Like, if you want to have that debate, that's perfectly fine, and I have those debates as well, and I enjoy them. But it feels like a lot of the time people just compare players and have these sort of debates for just no reason, and we just compare player to player for no reason. And any time a player is complimented or praised, or a player goes through a good spell of form, it's always, is this person the best in their position? Is this person better than X person? Pedri Henry goes through a run of form. Is he better than Bellingham? I don't know. Isak goes through a good spell of form. Is he the best striker in the world? Isak or Gyökeres? Isak or Haaland? And it's just like, come on. As I said, you can have those debates and that's perfectly fine. You can compare players. I have no issue with people doing that. It's just the constant comparison is just a bit overwhelming at points for me, personally speaking. But yeah, those are some of the main things which I dislike about modern football. To summarise, people judging players by just stats alone, not actually watching the players or watching the games, and just simply looking at their stats and, you know, making claims about players who they've maybe never ever in their lives even watched a game of football, because you can actually learn so much from watching just one game of a player than looking at their stats. Reactionary fans and the extreme nature of fans, where you have to be in or out of your manager, you have to say a player is good or bad. And after one game, this player is amazing. After one bad game, he's awful. After one good game, this random 16-year-old is the next Messi. Like, I also hate modern managers who are just so wedded to a philosophy and a system. You refuse to ever change their tactics, ever adapt in a game, and just play one way of playing no matter the consequences, no matter if they're losing 10-0 and losing 10 games in a row. They play the same way. And I also really hate the constant player comparisons, where players are just constantly compared to the next. They're compared to old players. You know, Van Dijk, is he better than Vidic? Is he better than Fernandes? Is he the best of all time? And they just constantly do it. Everyone does it, just constantly doing it. I don't mind it here and there, but just constantly comparing players and making these bold claims and stuff is just unbearable. It's unbearable. But yeah, those were some of the stuff I dislike about modern football. As I said, I don't want to come across as some old head guy who just despises this modern, young, youthful age of football. I really do like a lot of stuff about modern football, and I do think football's probably in a better place overall than what it was 10, 15 years ago for sure. So if you want to hear me talk about the stuff I love about modern football, I will gladly do so. But those were some of the stuff I hate. What do you hate or dislike about modern football in 2025? Do you agree or disagree with some of the stuff I mentioned? I really would love to hear your thoughts. But if you guys have enjoyed this video, please do leave a like,